Hello, is anybody here? You don't have to be afraid. I'm just here to talk with you. I am a seasoned paranormal investigator with a growing resume. I began investigating the paranormal when I was 16 years old, where I learned the tricks of the trade from a dear friend of mine. Since then, I've been a paranormal tour guide at the Ohio State Reformatory, have been on paranormal teams where I have investigated private homes, and have given presentations on real-life ghost busting. Now, I'm on a quest to explore all realms of the paranormal through expert interviews. I'm Sydney Miller, and this is Not Afraid. The Old Arnold Estate, located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, is an authentic colonial home circa 1736, whose paranormal phenomenon were made famous by the Conjuring movie in 2013, depicting the hauntings of the Perron family that lived there in the 1970s. Its paranormal past runs deep, as far back as the 1700s, when the spirits of native tribes remained embedded in the land up through the present day, with many spirits who continue to inhabit and visit the property. This mystical farmhouse offers visitors an opportunity to engage with authentic paranormal activity and is considered one of the most active paranormal locations in the world. Set on 8.5 acres surrounded by stone walls, open fields, a river, and a forest, visitors come from around the world to observe and connect with the energy here that Andrea Perron describes as, quote, a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse, end quote. Since opening to the public in 2019, thousands of visitors have witnessed and engaged with the abundance of supernatural activity present here. For anyone longing to connect with the other side of existence, this is the place to do it. The Conjuring House is a historical treasure with pastoral beauty, providing those who are curious with an experience they will never forget. For some, an experience here can provide the key to understanding that our consciousness survives death, and that we can connect with those who have passed before us. The Conjuring House land precedes its colonial records by thousands of years, while it was occupied by the Nipmuc and other local tribes prior to Roger Williams purchasing the land as part of the establishment of the colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantations. Having been expelled from the Massachusetts Bay Colony for espousing freedom of religious worship and separation of church and state, Roger Williams established Providence plantations in 1636 in Narragansett, Rhode Island. In 1639, Gloucester, now Burrillville, Rhode Island, became part of Providence plantations, including this estate deeded to the Richardson family. The land was deeded in 1680 and was surveyed by John Smith, one of the original Virginia colonists. Roger Williams believed that the best way to preserve the land was to deed large parcels to those who chose to follow him and his teachings. He did so to protect it from a rather overt encroachment from Connecticut and Massachusetts. The original estate deeded to the Richardsons was more than 1,000 acres. It was subsequently sold off in parcels to families in the area, some who are still there hundreds of years later. Because women had no right to property at this time in history, their estate transferred through marriage from the first colonists, the Richardson family, to the Arnold family. From the Arnold family, it transferred to the Butterworths and then to the Kenyons before being purchased by the Perrons in the 1970s. In 1980, the Schwartz family purchased the property and sold it to Norma Sutcliffe in 1987. Corey and Jen Heinzen purchased the property in 2019 from Norma and launched the business to allow investigations and day tours. In May of 2022, Jacqueline Nunez purchased the property and is continuing and growing the business. The house as it now stands was completed in 1736, 40 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This magnificent homestead has survived countless storms: King Philip's War, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and the unbridled growth of the industrial age in America. The house is a testament to the need to preserve history. 8 generations of one extended family had lived and died in it, and apparently some of them never left or visit it with some frequency. History has a story to tell. We will never know all of it, some of it which has been lost to the annals of time. But one thing is certain: there are few places like it which remain intact, and it deserves reverence for the national treasure that it is. This past August, my husband and I traveled to Burrillville, Rhode Island, to investigate and stay the night at the Conjuring House. This was definitely a bucket list item of mine, and it certainly didn't disappoint. So I'm kicking off season 3 with a 2-part episode on the notorious Conjuring House. In part 1, I will sit down with the current owner of the Conjuring House and get the inside scoop. And in part 2, my husband will join me as we discuss our personal experiences from that night. Tonight, I sit down with Jacqueline Nunez, who is the current owner of the Conjuring House. Since childhood, Jacqueline has had an avid interest in the metaphysical. Her numerous spiritual encounters throughout her adult life have convinced her that we are conscious beings having a human experience. Purchasing the Conjuring House enables her to bring her spiritualist beliefs and business skill sets full circle to build a business that enables guests to experience authentic paranormal activity in a myriad of ways. As you know, my husband and I were just there in August at the Conjuring House and had a good time. So I'm actually going to do a 2-part episode. In the second part, so yours is going to be released on Halloween.
Okay.
And then in the second part, he and I are going to sit down and talk about our personal experiences that we had at the Conjuring House that night.
Yeah, I know. Well, are you going to talk about them at all here on the podcast?
Yeah.
Do I get to hear any of it?
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of it.
Okay.
Without revealing the whole thing.
Absolutely.
All right. So when did your interest in the paranormal start?
You know, my interest in I'm new to the paranormal, but I'm not new at all to spirituality. I'm a spiritualist. I'm a member of a spiritualist church up here in the Massachusetts area. And I've been a very spiritual person for all of my adult life. And to me, it's kind of one and the same thing. It's just called something different, right? I mean, I've always believed that, we continue on after death. I believe that we are conscious beings having a human experience. So, of course, when the Conjuring House came on the market, it just felt like it was right up the alley of what I'm passionate about, what I believe, what interests me. But the actual paranormal side of it itself, like I had never been on a ghost hunt before, right before I bought the house. I had never done any paranormal stuff. Although, like I said, I have years and years of spiritual stuff and experiences, throughout my adult life. So.
You believed in it, but you didn't really, it wasn't your hobby until you bought the house.
Yeah. No. And, I had many experiences with very good mediums. So the fact that we survive after death had already been confirmed for me in many different ways throughout my adult life, but it certainly has been cool to write, like to be in front of a voice, like, a spirit box and hear voices giving you intelligent responses. I mean, it's been really fun. I just love it. So
cool, really cool. So what was your first paranormal experience that you had that you would consider?
My first paranormal experience that I've had at the house?
In general, maybe it could have been at the house or it could have been elsewhere.
Yeah, so I owned another house for a period of time, and there were tenants living there. And one night I got this phone call that they absolutely had to come talk to me, that there were spirits and ghosts in the house. This woman was clearly sensitive, and they were touching her. They were talking to her. They were trying to give me messages through her. A friend of mine also lived there and had doors banging and apparitions appearing. So I have a little bit of experience with that with another house that I owned. So that was my first into like real paranormal activity. My first paranormal activity at the Conjuring House was I was with Ghost Hunts USA. I think it was my first weekend there. And we're up in the middle bedroom, if you can picture the middle bedroom,
yeah,
right where Oliver Richardson is and where the little children play. And of course, they had their devices all set up everywhere and talking through the spirit box. And suddenly we heard very, very loud footsteps coming up one of the staircases. And it was truly incredible because there was no one in the house. It was a spirit coming up the stairs. And then when the spirit got to the top of the stairs, all of the devices, of course, just like went crazy.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we don't know who it was, but he or she definitely made their presence known. So that was my first experience at the house.
And you said you weren't from, you mentioned you're in Massachusetts. Is that where
Yeah,
you're from?
yeah, that's where I live. I live in the Boston area, and I'm only about an hour from the Conjuring House, so I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
very far.
So what was your attraction? Was it just simply the Conjuring House, or were you looking for
Yeah,
something in Rhode Island or?
yeah. Well, I grew up. My family, we loved horror movies. I mean, our idea of a great Christmas morning, we were all home, was to sit around, turn off all the lights, lower all the shades, and watch horror movies all day. I mean, so I'm from that genre, right? I really like the horror genre. So, and of course, when I had seen the Conjuring movie when it came out, it blew me away. Like I think it blew a lot of people away. Um, and so when I saw that it was on the market, it was a leisurely Saturday morning. I'm sitting on my couch drinking coffee, and I always look at Google trending to
Yeah.
see like what's going on. And it said the Conjuring House on the market. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I click on it. I realize it's only an hour away. And so by that next Monday, I think I looked at it on September 27th, I already had an appointment set up. I was going to attend one of the tours. So it happened quickly that I was able to get in to see it. And the minute I walked on the property, I knew. I mean, I just knew that I had to buy it. I mean, I just loved it immediately.
So it was pretty easy. There weren't a lot of people competing with you to try and
A
buy the
lot.
house.
There were
There
multiple,
were.
multiple offers, and they didn't, and I wasn't even the highest one. They turned down a couple of offers that were higher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, they really wanted someone. Um, and just to kind of backtrack, I clicked with Corey Heinzen right away. We immediately were in the same mindset when I met him. So we clicked right away. And it was very important to them that they find someone that wanted to continue to run and grow the business. I think that they had a few offers from people that just wanted to either put it to a different use or tear down the house and build 8 single-family homes, or because it's 8.5 acres.
Yeah.
So it was important to them that whoever bought it kept and would continue to grow the business. And of course, I immediately wanted them to remain involved. I said, there'll be a place for you, and they still are. Madison is on staff. Madison Heinzen's on staff. Jen Heinzen is on staff. She helps me with a lot of stuff. And once in a while, Corey comes down and we'll take a rotation for staffing. So they're still involved.
Wow. Well, that's awesome that they were able to give it to somebody who had good intentions for the home, because that would be a horrible thing in not only American history, but obviously paranormal history to have lost the Conjuring House.
Yeah, no, I really believe that it deserves to be accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Uh, and even without the paranormal, the rich colonial history, the fact that this estate predates our country by 100 years is pretty incredible. So the
Yeah.
colonial history is rich, and in and of itself is a historic treasure. But I mean, add the whole paranormal piece, and like I said, the public absolutely deserves access to it.
Right. Absolutely. So the Conjuring House then is not your primary residence.
No, and it was a condition when the sellers sold it um, that whoever buys it does not live there full time. So, which works out for me. The energy is very powerful there. I mean, I find, 2 weeks is probably the maximum amount that anyone should be there full time, because you really start to feel how the energy impacts you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, into like the 10th or 11th day, you can feel it. It isn't evil or scary. It's
Yeah.
more heavy and draining.
Oh, strange.
Yeah. So, and of course, whenever I get home, and I'm sure it's the same for like, I mean, I just sleep, I just crash. And all my pets, whenever I get them back home to Boston, I mean, they just sleep for 16, 18 hours straight. They're so exhausted. Um, but again, it's not an evil thing. It's just
Yeah,
energy is powerful.
that's interesting. I had not heard that before. So
Yeah,
about 2 weeks is the maximum before you really start to feel that.
yeah, yeah.
And so how do you said you take your pets there and they get tired? Do they have any other experiences? Because of course, pets supposedly are more sensitive to that stuff. Do your pets react?
Yeah, I mean, I've had at first my dog was did not want to come in the house.
Okay.
And I mean, she still prefers to be outside, but she's has stranger danger anyway. So, um, but she does prefer to be outside. But when she's in the house, she doesn't act weird. For a while, well, I shouldn't say that. For a while, she was like, would not go upstairs.
Ah,
It took her a long time to come upstairs. She acted afraid whenever I tried to get her to come upstairs. And my cats, I've had one of my cats has reacted like it's been freaked out a couple of times, but just a couple of times. There is a ghost cat in the house. And at times people have felt it rub up against them. I have felt it rub up against my legs. So I don't know if my cat freaked out because it saw the ghost cat. I have no idea. But there were 2 times when one of my cats just flipped out and went like, you know how they get all puffy and
yeah,
big? And he just went like tearing to the other side of the house. So I don't know what happened.
how strange. And any background on where the ghost cat came from, whose cat it was?
No idea, but that would be a great thing to try and find out, right? There's so much to learn about this house. So no idea. Someone told me that it is a tuxedo cat. So I was able to get that much information, a black and white cat. So, but I don't know.
That's interesting. It's interesting that it's always a cat. I hear a lot of stories about ghost cats, but I never hear stories about like ghost dogs or
Yeah, I don't know what
anything
that is.
else.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just strange. Everybody has a ghost cat. So what is it like owning one of what most people would consider the most haunted places in America?
Yeah. Oh, it's really cool and fun. And I have met just in the short time, 3 months or going on 4 months now that I've owned it, I have met the the best people. The guests are amazing. Everyone is so nice, and of course we're all interested in the paranormal. But I often meet guests, and I think to myself, oh man, like I could hang out with them, and I could hang out with them. Like they're just really cool people, and everyone so far has been very respectful of the house, which I very much appreciate. Um, and the house is active. We've been getting a lot of activity. We're getting a lot of, even on our day tours, we're getting a lot of activity. People are reporting being touched, hearing voices. Um, yeah, so it's been pretty cool.
That's interesting because I used to work at a historic site here in Ohio where I'm from, and I work daytime and night times, and I would say that I probably had as much experiences during the day that I did at night, and most people wouldn't think that that was the case, but I mean, they're spirits. They're there. They're not just there when the lights go out.
That's right. They're there all the time and they don't have any sense of night or day or time or right. So
Right.
but I think people like that element of more apprehension or fear that comes with nightfall.
Yeah.
And also at times, it can be a little bit more quiet at night. So I don't know, but I agree with you that spirits are pretty much there all the time.
So
Doesn't
you
have
were
to.
mentioning earlier about some of the spirits that were up in the middle bedroom. Who are some of the named spirits that are at the house? The ones that you've identified, you can maybe track a name to, or maybe know where they came from and why they're there.
Yeah, that is a great question. And what is interesting is that different spirits will come to interact with different guests.
Okay.
So Like, for example, there's a woman, she lives in New York. She's been to the house many, many times. And she comes, and a woman named Emily always comes through, kind of a younger, like teenage girl comes through to talk to her, who was apparently a housekeeper for the house at one point. I haven't yet met Emily. Um, Abigail Arnold has come through. She's Mrs. John Arnold. She has come through a few times. In fact, she showed us recently outside. She asked me to plant 2 pear trees. And so she showed us outside where we are supposed to plant these pear trees. It's like, it's just amazing the stuff that we're getting. So Abigail Arnold, she died when she was 93. She didn't die in the house, but she gave birth to, I think, 12 children while she lived there. So there's Abigail Arnold, there's John Arnold, there is some people have said that they've talked to Bathsheba, which I never have. And I think, Bathsheba doesn't really have any association with the house. There is a gentleman named Matthew who never lived at the house. He saw a light and followed it, and he ended up at the house, and now he likes it, so he stays. And he has a buddy named Jonathan that he hangs out with, who also never lived at the house, but they come and visit. And one of them is from the 1700s, and Matthew's from the 1800s. So I think that's kind of funny that that these two people the 2 spirits are hanging out together. And then Oliver Richardson is one of the children. That was part of the Perrin story. April Perrin would play with little Oliver Richardson up in the middle bedroom and would play with her toys. And he is still very much there. We have his voice captured saying things like "find me" or "come play with me." So yeah, he's still around. He's still around and engaging with guests.
So you've got the whole gambit.
It's the whole gamut. And like I said, really different people attract and will interact with different spirits, because we believe that there are residents that are like spirits that are more in residence there, like they're more permanent, but they're not trapped there. They are there on their own free will. And then we have spirits that just kind of pass through and visit.
Okay.
And so it's both, really.
That's
So I think that's why we get so many different spirits interacting with different guests.
And there's, if I'm not mistaken, I was told there is a cemetery out like a mile in the woods from the house. Do you think any of them come from that cemetery?
I'm not sure. That's about a mile. It's not, that particular burial ground is not affiliated with the house. It's just kind of close by. There is an Arnold burial plot that is a little bit further away, that I went to recently, and a lot of the owners are buried there. Edwin Arnold, John Arnold, Abigail Arnold is there. So that's more the burial ground where a lot of the owners are. There are also a couple of owners that are just a little further up on Round Top Road, so they're around. And then Norma Sutcliffe, one of the owners, she has, did you see the Beloved Pets headstone when you were there?
No, I didn't go to that one. I only went to Bathsheba, where Bathsheba was buried at.
Okay, because we have some pets that are buried on the property, and there's a headstone that says Beloved Pets that I think was put there by Norma Sutcliffe. So, yeah.
Maybe that's where the ghost cat came from.
Yeah, maybe.
So would you say the activity there is more residual or more intelligent, or a mixture of the two?
It's a mixture of the two. A lot of it is intelligent, because they are engaging and answering questions, and whether it's through a spirit box or an EVP or dowsing rods or REM pods, or lights that they blink once for yes, 2 for no. A lot of the activity is interactive.
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure it out, because it seemed to respond with devices, and I saw other people using it, and that we used a little bit, but they also kept dimming the lights.
Yeah, is that right?
out of nowhere. And I couldn't tell if that was a way of getting our attention or trying to answer a question, but it was just, you'd be sitting there, then it was almost dark out of nowhere. Then you turn the lights back up, and then a few minutes later, the lights dim back down.
Yes, that happens sometimes.
So yeah, that was it was just an interesting, not an experience people would have thought much of, but
Yeah.
when you're sitting there and you're doing all these other things and nothing's happening, and then the room next door to you, nobody's in, and then it just goes almost dark on you, and you're like, what is going on here?
Right.
It was interesting. So what are some of your most notable or some of your favorite personal experiences that you've had in the house, or that other people have shared with you that they've had in the house?
Yeah, there have been some pretty impressive photographs that have been shared. We've had some people in the last 6 weeks capture apparitions in a certain area of the basement, and in one of them you can see like you can see a figure of a human, you can see a head, and then the rest of the apparitions. So there have been some really awesome photographs shared. We have captured, because we have cameras video going 24/7, and we do that not because we're trying to like spy on our guests, but because we're trying to capture activity
Yeah.
that's going on in the house. And so we've captured in the last couple of months a couple of really interesting video of activity. Most recently of a light orb that was moving through the basement, a very profound and distinct light orb. So the evidence that is physical, it really excites me, right? Because it's right there. It's hard to explain some of the physical evidence away. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that is not paranormal, right? I mean, not everything that happens there is paranormal. Sometimes the door closes by itself because it's not level, or the floors are, you know what I mean? So not everything that happens there is paranormal, but like I said, when we capture physical evidence, that's really fun.
Do you have any evidence posted anywhere? Just out of curiosity, is there anything on YouTube or photos or anything?
Yeah, no, I'm okay to talk about it, but no, honestly, we don't want to do that one, because we don't want to like, I don't know if brag is the right word, or, the purpose of the Conjuring House is for people to come and have an experience. Like, to me, that is the most important thing that I can do, is to provide opportunities in different ways for people to have an experience. And so I want people to share their experience. I don't want to influence someone's experience or brag about what we're capturing or anything like that. So we, like I said, at times we talk about it, but you won't see us posting a lot of our own evidence. We're leaving that to guests to define their own experience and have their own experience.
That makes sense. And I get that question a lot too, because I go on, paranormal investigations all over the place from time to time. And everybody always wants to, see the photos, see the video footage. But the other thing about it is it's one thing to capture it, and I know I was there and I know nobody was in that room. But as soon as you put that on YouTube or on Facebook or out on the internet, everybody's going to, think you're a hoax and think that it's fake. And you got to go through all that criticism, and it's like, you weren't there. It's just really hard to share an experience through video.
Right. No, that's right. And also kind of goes back to the point that, I would never, ever question anyone's experience, right? Someone's experience is their experience. And you're right. And it often can't be explained, but it was real and it happened. And it isn't even necessarily related. This can apply to life in general, right? Like, it's not my place to judge or define or ridicule anyone's experience. And I'm happy for whatever experiences the people are having at the Conjuring House, because that's exactly what we want to do. We believe that it is, and we know it's a very active location, and guests are having some pretty profound experience for themselves, which is awesome.
And I've actually found, I've actually stepped back from using the digital recorder quite a bit. That's okay. Because first of all, whoever reviews their audio recorder, not me, not very
Yeah.
well. And I've also found that, if as long as I'm there and I'm experiencing it and I know that it was real, then that's what counts. And I've had probably better experiences without getting evidence out of it than I was, just standing in a room and something happened. And,
Yeah.
you don't always need the proof or, something to take with you.
Right. Now, how long have you been a paranormal investigator?
So really since I was 16, I'm 25, so almost 10 years. And obviously that was just at like cemeteries and stuff. So most places you have to be 18 to go. But then once I turned, I think it was 18 or 19, and I started working at the Ohio State Reformatory, which is a pretty notorious place where I live. That's where they filmed The Shawshank Redemption and all the TV shows and stuff have been there. So I spent 4 years there. And then I've done some other places around my local community and stuff, investigating. And then just all my time at the reformatory, that's been my experiences. And I used to lead ghost tours, people who were first timers, and show them the equipment and stuff and give them tips. And that's what I always tell them, like, don't get hung up on your equipment and just be there and experience it and take that with you. You don't have to take a picture of an apparition with you. You don't have to take a video or an EVP. Just take the experience with you.
Yeah, that's great.
So what sort of things go on outside the house, on the property? I know we spent a little bit of time outside. There was, I know, like a river or a creek and a bridge and some woods. You said there's 8.5 acres. So is there anything that goes on outside?
Yeah, and in fact, when Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the Perrons back in the 70s, they determined that it's the land that is active. And I don't like to call it haunted. I like to say it's paranormally active. So it is the land that is active, and that's why the house is active. So there have been many things that have been witnessed on the land. There's actually on YouTube, there's a recording of a UFO video. I don't know if you've seen it. It's posted by Karen Tatro, and it's really pretty cool what this thing does in the sky over the Conjuring House. There have been multiple stories from the Perrons to even a couple months ago guests of hearing children playing and giggling in the woods. And we believe that they are native tribe, from a native tribe. So that story has been passed and been going on for, like I said, since the 70s, when the Perrons experienced children playing in the woods. So yes, and light orbs have been seen. Shadow figures have been seen. So yeah, the land is as active.
Interesting you bring up the kids thing, because I did not know that. We didn't have any experiences outside that night. I know other people did, but we were doing the Estes method in the library.
Yeah.
And we kept hinting at that there were two separate kids who, according to the Estes method, and I'm not trying to say this is fact, drowned in the river. Have you heard anything about anybody dying in the river?
Yes, I have heard of children dying in the river, and I've heard of Native Americans dying in the river or being murdered in the river. So yes, I have heard those stories.
I didn't even know that, but my husband had the headphones on, and he's listening to the spirit box, and he's never done it before. He thought that was a super cool experience. And I'm over there asking questions, and then somebody else came in who was a medium, and they were chatting back and forth, which was really interesting. And between what both of them were saying, we came to the conclusion that there were two young kids who had supposedly drowned in the river on the property, which was just...
Did you get any names?
Did not get any names that I can recall. I have to go back and listen. I don't think we got any names, though. We kept asking and we kept asking, but I think they were boys. I think we did find that out. And then I think we got an age range. I want to say they were like 10, 12, 9, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Because
what would be cool, what I like to try and do is whenever we get some evidence. At one point, we were talking to Abigail Arnold, and so I was sitting, because I have the ancestry.com. I've been trying to chase the genealogy of who lived there and their children. And she was giving us information and telling us the names of her children and the dates and years that they died. And I was like confirming it real time on ancestry.com.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. So when like you can confirm, because I love history.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to get, when we talk to the spirits, like I want information from them, like, you know, what was your last name? What year did you die? Like, how did you die? And so that I can try and verify it. And there've been a couple that we've really been able to verify that just have kind of blown us away. So it's cool to be able to do that.
Oh, for sure. And that's what I was hoping to do. So I was taking notes on a notepad while they were both spouting out at each other, but I don't recall us getting any names. I'll have to look again, but because I know we kept asking, but then we just kept getting, you know, drowned in the river on the property. And we might have gotten some years.
Yeah, maybe we'll follow up with that. See if we can get some more info. I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would be interested to find out, because then I kept asking everybody that night, like, you know anything about this? And some people were saying, yeah, I've heard, you know, that there were rumors of people dying in the river or kids dying in the river. So it's interesting that that's at least not something brand new that we just discovered, that other people have had that.
No, when there is a torrential rain, that river becomes a very different river. I mean, it can be dangerous, and it can like sweep up over that footbridge. So I can imagine a little kid getting caught up in some, you know, raging rainstorm as the river is gushing towards. I can imagine something like that happening there for sure, because it is dangerous when it gets to that state. It doesn't happen very often, you know, like during the rainy season, but when it happens, it's a little scary.
Well, and it seems kind of secluded, and like if a kid was out there and an adult wasn't close by, I could see, you know, them slipping under and nobody's there to hear them or see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's interesting. So what do you think it would be the most bizarre experience you've heard somebody have at the Conjuring House? It's the most bizarre thing that's happened.
We've had, I mean, the photographs being captured. We had an incident on a day tour, and the gentleman who visited, he was kind of a skeptic, and you know, he's kind of, I think he was expressing his skepticism, and they were standing in the dining room, and he got scratched on his forearm. So right before the tour started, he like came up to us and he's like, I'm not sure if I should say anything, but I got scratched, right, you know, and so I took a photo of it, and then he handled it well, and then he went on the tour, and then he got scratched again down in the basement, and you could see the scratch marks up on his, like down his collarbone. And so he left a believer, and we heard from him and his wife again. They want to, you know, schedule an overnight investigation, but that was pretty wild that happened.
Yeah, I would say so. If that's what it takes, I guess, to be a believer.
Yeah.
But that's not typically something that happens, right?
No, although like I said, on day tours, people are being touched. Hair is being flipped, or someone feels like someone like rubbing their finger on their arm. So that has happened a few times on day tours. And these are only hour-long day tours. They start at 11 in the morning and go till 3. Well, we do have a video of a recent book flying off the library shelf during a day tour. You can see the two women kind of walking around the couch towards the library, and you hear a book get thrown, and you see them get startled, like, what the heck was that? And then the tour guide goes in and picks up the book, and it was hilarious. It was More Joy of Sex that fell off the shelf.
That's funny.
It was really, really funny. So the tour guide got a kick out of it. So she just put the book back, and that was the end of it. But we caught that. We have that on video. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But probably the scratching, I think, has been, um, pretty. That was something else that happened.
Yeah, that's obviously anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that many people have sort of an expectation that the house is filled with some sort of dark and oppressive energy. I'll say that when I was there, and I was only there for a night, but I did not feel uncomfortable. And I really expected to. I
Yeah.
was not uncomfortable at all in the house. I've been into some creepier attics and basements and houses that were half the age, and I did not feel that in the house. So how would you describe the feeling of the Conjuring House?
Yeah, I think one thing I think that the Conjuring House is, it's a mirror and an amplifier. What the beliefs and the attitudes and stuff that you come in with to the Conjuring House, it will respond to that, and it will return that in kind. So people that, that are skeptic are going to like talk smack, then the house is going to respond accordingly, right? People that come in and they like are at peace and filled with love and light, then they're going to receive that in their communication. So it really is a lot about who you are coming into the Conjuring House, your beliefs, expectations, and so forth. But no, absolutely not. I do not believe that there is anything inherently evil at the house. I mean, we do know that there is one cranky, malevolent spirit. There is a malevolent spirit there, and we just try not to give her attention because, they feed off energy. And so if you ignore her or not engage with her, then she can't manifest as such. I believe, energy feeds off energy. Whatever you focus on is what you're going to get. And so we just choose to try not to focus on that. But but no, we haven't. I mean, if we really thought anyone could be harmed, by coming there, then I mean, it would never be open to the public. So, but
I
some
think
people
maybe,
also want that, right?
yeah,
Also, people
Zach
want
Bagans.
that. They want to think that. They want to be terrified. They want to think that it's all demons and evil. Some people want that. But it's not what the Conjuring House is, if that
No,
makes
it
sense.
it wasn't. It does make sense because, like I said, I think I was kind of expecting that, and maybe that's just because there's a horror film based on it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just got that dark stigma to it, and it's creepy in the daytime. I'll give you that.
yeah,
But when the lights went out, I was more comfortable there than I am in my own house. Sometimes it was not at all what I expected it to be, and I was impressed by that. I was like, oh, it obviously there's activity going on, but it just felt very peaceful and quiet.
yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad that that's the experience that you had. No, I get often, it's taken me a long time to get some of my closest friends to even come and visit. I'm like, you guys just come and visit. And then when they do, they're like, oh, this is actually very serene and peaceful. And I don't feel terrified at all. I'm like, see, that's what I told you. Like, that's not its energetic essence, if you will. It's just not.
Okay, so just a couple questions left, but obviously the Hollywood film isn't accurate because everybody tells you that and it's Hollywood and that's what they do. But what parts of the story, to your knowledge, are true?
Yes, good question. So definitely Carolyn was terrorized in real life, albeit in some different ways, but she was terrorized. That is true. While she wasn't possessed in the basement and she never tried to kill her children, she did have a spirit attachment that lifted her up in her chair and threw her from the seance room into the parlor. That is true. Um, it is true that there was a little child that the youngest daughter played with. In the movie, it was Rory. In real life, his name was Oliver Richardson. Um, it is true that they had a dog that died at the farm, but it didn't die in the way that it was depicted in the movie. I believe it was hit by a car or something on Round Top Road. Um, let's see, what else? It is true that there was a lot of conflict and disbelief by Roger at first, and not wanting to believe that there was activity. What it wasn't true actually after the Warrens did come to do an exorcism. That is true, but after Carolyn got picked up and thrown into the parlor, Ed Warren and Roger Perrin got into an altercation, and Roger punched him in the face and knocked out a tooth and kicked the Warrens out. So, so the relationship in real life between the Warrens and the Perrins pretty much ended after that incident. They really never communicated with each other again after that. And the Warrens left the house that night, not even knowing if Carolyn was okay. So those are some of the, so there were definitely some truths. Certainly not true about Bathsheba. Bathsheba was never a witch. She never lived there. She didn't kill an infant by impaling it in the back of the neck, at least that we can find, right? There's no evidence of it. There was no inquest done. So and that's kind of an unfortunate, well, if you saw Bathsheba's gravesite, you know, some people have just destroyed it because of the story. So that's an unfortunate consequence of the movie.
I had heard that wasn't true at all, but she was a person, a real person that lived, what was it, a few houses down?
Yeah, about a mile and a half away. She
Okay.
lived. Yeah, yes. She was a real person, and she did have two young children that died when they were young, but she was given a proper, respectable Christian burial at her time of death. So, yeah. And it's also not true that anyone hung themselves in the barn. There's been only one questionable death that we've been able to find in the records. So no one hung themselves in the barn.
You don't think that Bathsheba has anything to do with one of the spirits on the property?
Again, different people have communicated with Bathsheba. So it sounds like, well, look at it this way. If you kept hearing someone calling your name, invoking your name, you'd probably want to go check out what's going on. And her name has been invoked so often. I'm sure she has now at times visited the house. According to a local medium who hosts events there, that she's had, you know, she says she's had many conversations with Bathsheba. So, and again, it depends, but we haven't. I haven't.
Okay.
Um,
That's an interesting theory. I mean, that makes sense. If she was a person who is very relatively nearby and did live in the area, and her spirit may or may not be around, but if she is around, and like you said, everybody's calling her name, I mean,
right?
think
Like
you'd
what?
be interested in, like,
Right? Why is everyone calling my name? Right.
yeah, what do I have to do with this?
Right.
So you mentioned the daytime tours,
Yeah.
and you said they're about an hour. I think that's very interesting and very important that you do daytime tours, because some people want to see it, but are maybe, you know, not ghost hunters or have any interest in being out at night for whatever reason.
That's right.
What are those like, and how can somebody schedule a tour?
Yeah. So we just launched our new website and a new booking system. So we have the whole schedule of day tours. Yes, and we're getting a lot of people, one, that have never been to the house before, and that they're not necessarily paranormal investigators. I'm really trying to open the house up to expand beyond just paranormal investigators. Like we're also now hosting medium events where a talented medium will give a gallery reading to 12 participants and provide spirit messages from loved ones. We've had 3 of those events, all sold out so far. So those have been nice. And again, that's attracting the more spiritual side of people, right? Not necessarily paranormal. So we have the gallery events. We have also 5-hour investigations that we're offering. We call them GO events, GHO, GO investigations. And that's for people that maybe have never been ghost hunting before. They don't know anything about it, but they don't want to commit an entire night. So we go from 7 to midnight. Like I said, I'm trying to offer and expand different events and different opportunities to experience the house in different ways and from as many different people as we can attract.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good idea. And so what I'll do, because I always do this for my guest, is in the show notes, when this goes out on, it will be on YouTube and it will be on all of the, audio streaming services, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of those. I will include a link to your website there so that people can just go straight to there and click on the link and go to your website. And then when I post this on Facebook, I will tag the Conjuring House in it so that you can see when it goes live. And like I said, that will be on Halloween night.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So last question for you is, what are your plans for the future of the Conjuring House? I know you explored that a little bit in the last question with that you're trying to explore some different events. So
yeah. So, I mean, same idea, continuing to expand. We're going to be also offering like curated special events. We have our first wedding in November of 2023. I think that is fantastic. I'm going to get the barn renovated in shape so that we can host events in there and use that as an event space and let people, ghost hunt in the barn. We aren't able to give anyone access now because it's in such bad shape. So those are some of the immediate things, to just expand into special events and get the barn renovated to open that up for usage. But the idea is to continue the business model as we are for certainly the way ahead foreseeable future.
That's interesting that you bring that up. I am actually an event coordinator for a local historical society here. So that is totally my gig with setting up. They don't do anything paranormal, which they did, but setting up community events and, wedding. We have a venue that we rent for weddings and meetings and business get-togethers and stuff like that. So that is really cool.
Who do you work for? What is this again?
I work for the Ashland County Historical Society.
Okay.
It's in North Central Ohio. They're just a little nonprofit organization that's got a decent endowment from a family in town that passed away, and so we've been able to expand. And most historical societies are volunteer based, and we have 5 full-time staff members and 2 part-timers.
That's amazing.
So
that's cool. That's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's adventure. It's the same thing without the ghost.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about tonight that I didn't bring up that maybe you wanted to clarify or mention?
No, I think you pretty much covered. The only other thing I'm going to give a plug to Andrea Perrin here. If you haven't read yet her trilogy of books, House of Darkness, House of Light, they are outstanding accounts of their time at the Conjuring House and their 10-year tenure there, and goes into great detail of what happened to them during that time. So I would encourage, if you're not getting enough of the Conjuring House, to read those books and really get a rounded view of its history.
That's a great suggestion. And I just saw her. She was up here for Parapsychon in May, and I just met her and got a picture with her. She is a very sweet woman, and I do need to read her books because
she's wonderful. Yeah, she is great.
Well,
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, because it really was a pleasure chatting with you about the farm on Round Top Road, having been there, and so excited about my experience there. And I look forward to, staying in touch. And if you get any more answers about.
Yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can find out about the 2 boys that drowned. See what I can tell you.
Yeah.
And you'll have to come back to visit us. I
certainly will. It was like about a 12-hour journey for us that we broke up into several days. But I'll tell you, it was worth every minute it took to get there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you for having me. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. So tune in to our next episode to hear about the weird, creepy, and unexplained experiences that we had at the Conjuring House. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite streaming service. I'm Sydney Miller, and this was Not Afraid.